If you or someone you know suffers from neuropathy, you need to pay attention to this segment. We're here with Patrick Doyle, the founder of Neighborhood Neuropathy Center of Reno. Thank you so much for having us here.
Glad you could be here.
Tell me a little bit about Neighborhood Neuropathy Center. What is neuropathy?
Neuropathy is a disease of the nerves where people experience pain or lack of pain.
So what are some of the causes of neuropathy and what are some of the symptoms?
The main cause is diabetes. That would be followed up shortly by chemotherapy drugs. Those are the two large ones. There's a lot of other smaller causes too, but they all contribute that. That's on the metabolic side. Also on the mononeuropathy side, you have compression. So a surgery that went wrong or maybe a motor vehicle accident.
What are some of the symptoms that I'd experience if I had neuropathy?
The most common symptom is pain of some description. So people use insects biting their feet. They use barbed wire wrapped around their feet, fire, ice, pins and needles and nails, electric arcing. Those are very, very common symptoms. Another symptom is that they can't sleep at night. It wakes them up between 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. That's the most common reported symptom.
You're talking quality of life. How many people suffer from neuropathy?
If you looked at only the chemotherapy patients and the diabetic patients, about 40 million people in the United States.
How does chemotherapy play into neuropathy?
The chemotherapy drugs affect the nerves, and 70% of those people will experience peripheral neuropathy at some point.
70%?
Yes, it's very high.
Will suffer neuropathy?
Yes. We deal with the polyneuropathy, so causes from diabetes, causes from chemotherapy, vitamin B12 deficiency, alcohol and excessive use, a number of different farmed chemicals. Those are all types of neuropathy that we can deal with.
Untreated, there are some very serious potential risks.
Well, fall risk is the biggest potential risk, and what is progressive disease. So people move from the pain cycle into the numbness or no pain cycle, which is worse because they have a lack of sensation. They don't know where they're putting their feet. So for an example, they may not know where they're putting their foot on the brake or the accelerator because they have no sensation. And when you have no sensation, you have a balance problem, and therefore you have a fall risk.
A fall risk at 20 is one thing. You're 20. But it's different if you're a little more mature.
It is. It's a lot more dangerous. There's a lot more health risk associated with that if people have falls at an older age. The disease really sets in probably about 5 years before people realize they have it.
Wait a second. So you can have this and not even know it?
Absolutely, yeah.
What are some of those early indicators that maybe people would pay attention to if they knew about them that would help them even mitigate that 5 years?
There's no real early indicators for the first 5 or 6 years. It's the next decade that you have little things like my feet hurt a little bit, or my toes hurt a little bit, or a little bit of tingling going on once in a while. The same symptoms, but just not as pronounced. And then over the next decade, those symptoms increase to the point where the person needs to do something about it. They feel that now they actually have to do something, and that might be 20 years later.
What are the advantages of early detection and early treatment?
As with any medical condition, if you can address the problem earlier, the results will be better in a shorter period of time.
Neuropathy can commonly be a circulation issue.
Generally speaking, that's what it is.
So treated early, we're talking about not allowing the nerves and the vessels to deteriorate and improve the circulation.
That's exactly what you want to do. You want to try to keep feeding the nutrients to the extremities, because this is peripheral neuropathy, so it's dealing with the hands, but probably more of the feet. And that's at the very end, and the vessels are very, very small there. So we can keep those alive and keep the tissue alive, and you're going to forestall the eventual.
You can delay it, you can even somewhat reverse it, but not cure it.
You can't cure it, but you can reverse it.
You can have a better quality of life.
A substantially better quality of life.
Well, let's take a look at some of the treatment options.
Okay.
Tell me about Rosa's case of neuropathy. It's not your traditional type.
It's not the traditional type that we see in here. It's not peripheral neuropathy. Rosa had a case of shingles, and her whole side of her face was full of sores.
Wow.
And that was about maybe a year ago. And then after the sores went away, she was left with what we call post-herpetic neuralgia. So she still has the horrible nerve pain, even though she doesn't have any outward signs of the shingles anymore. So her daughter heard about us and gave us a call and wanted to know if we could help her.
How did you know if this treatment would benefit Rosa?
I've had other patients before who have experienced relief using infrared light therapy for this same condition.
So Rosa came in and had a treatment to see if this was going to work for her.
She did. We had a conversation with her husband and her daughter, and they were a little skeptical, kind of just curious about whether they thought it would work. And they were going to go home and talk about it, but I offered, why don't we just give you a treatment today, and you can see what the treatment is like. And she had immediate results.
Immediate results?
Immediate results after the 20-minute treatment.
Which?
She sat there and was like, oh my goodness. She was immediate results.
For her, relief.
Relief.
For her family.
Relief.
Relief. It was an extraordinary experience.
Yes.
How do you determine if somebody's a good candidate for therapy?
The best way is to determine what group they fall into, and if they fall into the metabolic group, we know we're going to be able to help those people. And the other thing we want to do is determine the severity of the problem. So with those two answers, we can then decide if they're a candidate and then what care plan would be appropriate. And we do that through a series of tests. And most of them are sensation tests, or simple little tests. They test for hot and cold and sharp and dull, and standard tests are used throughout the industry. But what we do is we add all these tests up and then come up with a score. In addition to that, we do a balance test. So we want to determine what their fall risk is. We have three basic things that we do here, and one of them is nutritional. We want to allow the body to create more nitric oxide that the vibration and the light therapy devices release into the bloodstream, which acts as a vasodilator, which is another word for increasing circulation. That's exactly what we're all about, is increasing local circulation.
How does circulation then impact somebody's neuropathy?
Well, circulation, as we're increasing circulation, nerves are regenerating, new capillaries are being formed, nutrients are being fed to the area, and pain is being reduced.
What interests me is that somebody that has gone from, as you mentioned, having pain to having no pain, when they first begin treatment, you have to go back through the pain cycle again. How does that work?
The progression of this disease is from mild symptoms, a little bit of pain, a little bit of tingling, to more severe pain and more severe tingling and arcing and things like that, into a lack of sensation. That's actually worse. That's where the fall risk comes into play. And our goal is to take them back through that whole thing. As we go back, we're going to go back through the sensation, and they may feel some tingling, they may feel some discomfort on the way. Now, through early intervention, if we can eliminate allowing that person to go all the way to the lack of sensation section, then we start earlier. And when we start earlier, it's easier to get that better results.
So what do you have going on here?
Well, this is a typical setup where the patient sits in here for light therapy, and so we have all the devices pre-connected. We just hook them up. Here we have the massage plate, the vibration plate, which is good for the calves and for the feet. And over here is a massage chair that we typically use for the caregiver that's sitting here for 20 minutes with nothing to do, and so they get a free massage.
What type of treatment is this?
This is a pulsed electromagnetic field bed known as PEMF. We use this for all patients.
One of the things that I think is really important for people to understand is your history in this industry, and that you wanted to make sure that your protocol was affordable to more people than it has been in the past.
Well, we've built light devices since 2003 and supplied them to, I'm going to say, over 1,000 clinics around the country. And what we found is that the prices that people were charging for the protocol, for the care plans, was excessive. And we opened this clinic with the idea of bringing the cost down into line so more people could afford it.
How long is the typical treatment protocol?
Typically, it's in clinic and it's 12 weeks long. But some patients need further care. And so we've developed a program where they can do something at home. It also works for people that have a mobility problem. They just physically can't get to the clinic because of distance or they don't drive.
And so you can still help them improve their quality of life as well.
We can, yeah, and that's what we developed that for, to be able to reach more people.
For somebody watching right now that wants to come in and get an evaluation and see if this treatment is right for them, how would they get a hold of you?
The simplest way is to call us at the clinic on 775-382-1415, or they can go online at neighborhoodneuropathy.com, and we're located about 1 block from the airport. Very easy to find, very easy to park.
And anybody that has a family member or suffers from neuropathy themselves should do that. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.